Imagine this. You open your eyes, but there's no sky above you, no earth beneath you, no sound, no time, no body, just your consciousness. A floating mind suspended in the infinite silence of space. You remember your childhood, your mother's voice, the taste of strawberries, the first person you ever loved, even what you ate this morning. But what if none of it was ever real? What if your memories, your thoughts, your entire identity were just illusions? A trick of atoms, briefly assembled by chance into a thinking brain drifting through the cosmos. This is the Boltzmann Brain Paradox, and once you understand it, you'll never see your own existence the same way again. It began with Ludwig Boltzmann, a brilliant 19th century physicist obsessed with entropy, the idea that everything naturally moves from order to chaos. He noticed something simple. Your room never cleans itself. Left alone, it always gets messier. The universe, Boltzmann argued, works in a similar way. But what happens in a universe that's infinite? One with no end, and all the time in the world? Strange things, statistically inevitable things, because in such a universe, anything that can happen must happen eventually, no matter how absurd it seems. It's like a million monkeys typing randomly on a million typewriters. Given enough time, they will eventually write the works of Shakespeare. And in the same way, random atoms floating through infinite space could, purely by chance, form a brain. Not a body, not a planet, just a single thinking brain. A brain with your memories, your personality, your exact stream of thoughts, complete with the illusion of a past. Now imagine two scenarios. Scenario 1. The universe we know, galaxies, stars, planets, life, civilization, evolved slowly from a hot, dense beginning over 13.8 billion years to give rise to your current experience. Scenario 2. A lone brain suddenly flickering into existence from a random swirl of particles, with no body, no earth, but fully equipped with all the memories and thoughts you're having right now. Which is more probable? The answer is unsettling. Statistically, Scenario 2 is vastly more likely, because arranging a single brain requires far fewer coincidences than arranging an entire universe. It's like throwing Lego bricks in zero gravity. What's more likely to form by chance? A small toy house or an entire functioning city? Exactly. The brain is the house. The universe is the city. So here's the paradox. If random Boltzmann brains are more likely to exist than real universes, and if you currently feel like you're experiencing something real, aren't you more likely to be one of those Boltzmann brains than a real person in a real universe? That's the terrifying implication. Every friend you've made, every laugh you've shared, every pain you've felt, could be nothing more than the phantom activity of neurons in a brain that's been alive for a few fleeting seconds in deep space. Some philosophers see this as proof that our current understanding of probability is flawed. Others believe it may point to something deeper, that consciousness itself may not require a physical history at all. Could it be that we are all just thoughts in a larger mind? A flicker in the awareness of something vast? Or is the universe just far stranger than we can comprehend? As you drift toward sleep, Ask yourself this: does it really matter if you're a Boltzmann brain or a being born of stars? You're thinking, you're feeling, you're here, even if here is a dream or a cosmic accident. And perhaps that's what matters most, because no matter how unlikely your existence is, you do exist, in this moment. And that makes your reality as real as anything can be. And here's a final thought. If you were a Boltzmann brain, you'd never be able to prove it. Not in a million years. So why not embrace the experience you're having and live it fully? After all, even if the universe is an illusion, your wonder is not. Your consciousness, real or imagined, is the one mystery no paradox can take away. What if the person sitting next to you, smiling, nodding, laughing at your jokes, wasn't really there? Not mentally, not emotionally, not consciously. What if they had no thoughts, no feelings, no awareness at all, just behavior? What if they were what philosophers call a philosophical zombie? Not the kind that groans and chases brains, but the kind that looks exactly like a normal human being. They breathe, they speak, they cry at movies, say ouch when stubbed, and tell you they love sunrises. But inside, nothing. No inner world, no light of awareness, no conscious experience. They are empty machines, walking, talking illusions of humanity. This unsettling idea isn't a science fiction plot. It's a serious thought experiment in the world of philosophy, and it was brought to light by philosopher David Chalmers in his exploration of what he calls the hard problem of consciousness. Chalmers didn't invent zombies, he redefined them. His philosophical zombie is a mirror of you and me, indistinguishable on the outside, but void on the inside. No pain, no joy, no fear, no beauty, just responses, just programming, just the appearance of being alive. You could joke with one, debate with one, cry in front of one, and never know the truth, because they'd do everything a conscious being would do, but without ever feeling it. So, why does this idea matter? Because it tears at the very fabric of what makes consciousness so profoundly strange. It asks, why do we feel anything at all? Why do we experience sunsets as beautiful, or heartbreak as unbearable, instead of just reacting like machines? We recoil from pain, but we also feel pain. We don't just process the world, we experience it. But what if we didn't need to? What if feelings are just extra? Here's a way to understand it. Imagine two computers. One crunches numbers, quiet and efficient. The other does the same. But every time it solves a problem, it plays a pleasant chime. Now ask yourself, is that sound necessary? Of course not. It's just extra, a flourish. That's how some philosophers see consciousness. An added chime, an echo, something that doesn't change the function, but adds a mysterious feeling to the process. Now let's bring this to life. Imagine someone named Alex walking alone through a quiet forest. Suddenly, a snake slithers into view. In an instant, Alex's heart races. Muscles tense, eyes widen. Every nerve bristles with primal alert. The body reacts. Fast, efficient, survival mode. But here's the haunting question. Does Alex need to feel fear to survive? Could all of this happen without any actual experience of fear? Just signals and movement? A philosophical zombie could do the same. Detect danger. Step back. Run. All without feeling a thing. It would mimic fear perfectly, but it would never know what fear feels like. And that leaves us with a deep, unresolved mystery. If a creature can survive, react, and function without consciousness, then why did we evolve to feel? What's the purpose of this inner world we live in? Is it just a lucky mistake of evolution? A beautiful accident of biology? Or does it serve some hidden, sacred function we haven't yet understood? One of the most haunting implications of the philosophical zombie theory is its direct challenge to one of science's deepest assumptions: physicalism. Physicalism claims that everything about the mind, every thought, feeling, and decision can ultimately be explained through physical processes in the brain. But what if that isn't true? What if consciousness isn't a byproduct of biology, but something extra? Something that doesn't emerge from neurons and chemicals, but exists alongside them. The philosophical zombie suggests just that a being could behave exactly like us without any inner awareness at all. If true, then consciousness might not be reducible to matter and motion. It might belong to a different category entirely, something as fundamental to the universe as space, time, or gravity. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some argue that true human behavior requires consciousness, that our ability to love, to reason, to create, to suffer. These things are inseparable from our inner awareness. To them, a philosophical zombie is a contradiction, an illusion built from faulty logic. They say, you can't remove consciousness and expect the machine to keep working as if nothing happened. But still, the idea persists. Because we feel something strange when we try to define our own experience. We know we're conscious. We feel it. We are inside it. But no matter how deeply we study the brain, that raw, living sensation remains untouched, unmeasured, and entirely invisible from the outside. Imagine this. You're handed the most advanced scanner in the world. You use it to map every neuron in a person's brain, every chemical, every electrical pulse. You learn everything about how they function, but you still don't know what it feels like to be them, to feel their sorrow, their joy, their silent thoughts in the stillness of morning. Consciousness is not something you can hold under a microscope, and this is what makes the philosophical zombie so powerful. It reminds us that there is something uniquely mysterious about inner life. And then comes the existential twist. What if you're the zombie? What if everything you believe about your own awareness, your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of self, is just a program tricking you into believing you are alive in the way you think you are? How do we ever know that other people are conscious? We assume they are because they speak, laugh, cry, and seem to feel. But if zombies exist, perfect, hollow copies, how would we ever tell the difference? These questions aren't just philosophical games. They scratch at something deeper, something vulnerable. They force us to ask, what does it really mean to be alive? Is it to breathe, to speak, to function? Or is it to feel, to know joy, grief, curiosity, love? In the end, whether philosophical zombies are possible isn't the point. What matters is what they reveal. They show us how astonishing it is that we are conscious at all, that we can sit with silence, recall a memory, watch a sunset and feel something stirring inside. In a universe made of rocks and fire, gravity and dust, somehow, somewhere along the way, awareness happened. And that, no matter how fragile or fleeting, is a miracle worth marveling at. A breeze rustles through the trees. A man lies beneath them, his eyes growing heavy, the world fading into soft light. In his dream, he is no longer human. He is a butterfly, delicate, weightless, gliding through the sky on painted wings. He feels the warmth of the sun, the dance of the wind, the joy of flight without memory, without worry, without past or future. In this dream, he doesn't remember being a man. He knows only the bliss of being what he is, a creature of air and color and motion. And then, he awakens. He is a man again. The butterfly fades, the sky, the wind, the wings, gone. But something strange lingers. A question that cuts deeper than any dream. Was he a man dreaming he was a butterfly? Or is he now a butterfly? Dreaming he's a man. This is the butterfly dream paradox. A tale whispered down through centuries, attributed to the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi, who lived around the 4th century BCE. And in its simplicity, it carries one of the most profound questions philosophy has ever asked. What is real? Are you sure this moment, right now, isn't a dream? Are you certain you're awake? Zhuangzi's story reveals something strange about how our minds work, how we can live fully inside a dream, believe it without question, feel joy, fear, love, and only after waking realize it wasn't real. But what if waking is just another layer of the dream? What if we never truly wake up? You've likely felt it. The disorientation after a vivid dream. The moments where dream and waking life blur. Where the people you saw, the emotions you felt realer than real. Dreams create entire worlds, landscapes, stories, sensations, all from nothing but thought. And while we're inside them, we don't question them. Why then do we assume this reality is more real than the last? Zhuangzi's dream asks us to question the boundaries we draw between what we call waking life and what we call illusion. In the dream, he was a butterfly. He experienced a world. He felt it. Who's to say his butterfly self wasn't as real as the man who awoke? If everything we perceive, from color to emotion, is shaped by our senses and brain, then perhaps reality is not a fixed truth, but a subjective experience. Think of it this way. Each of us walks through the world with a different lens, different memories, different beliefs, different ways of interpreting what we see, hear, and feel. Like personal film projectors, our minds cast different versions of the same movie, the movie of life. The screen might be shared, but the story is always our own. This idea that reality is filtered, shaped by the observer, has echoed through time. Philosophers like René Descartes asked similar questions. He imagined the possibility of a powerful entity deceiving him, tricking his senses, controlling his thoughts. And yet, he found one truth he could not doubt. I think, therefore I am. If he could question, then he must exist as a being capable of thought. But even he couldn't prove the nature of the world around him. Just like Zhuangzi, he was haunted by the possibility that everything else might be an illusion. Zhuangzi's dream doesn't stand alone. It echoes across time, in myth, in philosophy, in the quiet spaces where thought turns inward. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of Maya speaks a similar truth, that the world we know is an illusion, a shimmering veil hiding something deeper, more eternal. Just as Zhuangzi questioned whether he was the butterfly or the man, Maya suggests we too might be caught in a dream, unaware that there is something beyond the colors, the shapes, the stories we mistake for permanence. What if the line between illusion and reality is not a line at all, but a blur, a dance of shadows and light? In the modern world, Zhuangzi's question has resurfaced in chilling new forms. Philosophers today speak of the brain in a vat. Imagine it. A single human brain suspended in fluid, kept alive by machines, its nerves wired into a supercomputer that simulates the world, the warmth of the sun, the voice of a friend, the feel of walking barefoot through grass. To that brain, everything would feel real. It would think, it would remember, it would dream, but it would never know that nothing it sees or feels actually exists. This scenario, as unsettling as it sounds, mirrors our own condition. How sure are you that what you see right now, these words, this screen, this life, isn't part of a dream or a simulation crafted perfectly for your mind? If our senses can be tricked, if reality depends on perception, then the very foundation of certainty begins to tremble. Zhuangzi's ancient tale remains disturbingly relevant, but here's the beautiful twist. Zhuangzi didn't seek answers. He didn't struggle to draw hard lines between real and illusion. Instead, he invited us to let go, to stop chasing absolute certainty, to live with the unknown as a companion, not an enemy. There's a quiet wisdom here, to flow with the mystery, like a leaf in the river, not clinging to rocks of certainty, but gliding through the stream of ever-changing perception. Dreams. Reality. Maybe they're just names we give to the states we pass through. Maybe it's all one great continuum. And maybe that's not something to fear, but something to marvel at. Think of your own dreams, the ones that felt real, the ones you woke from still clinging to a feeling, a scent, a voice, a loss. Were they less real just because they ended? Isn't every moment we live and lose a kind of dream? Zhuangzi's butterfly teaches us that truth might not lie in answers, but in experience, in the act of being, even when we don't fully understand what being is. Perhaps we are butterflies dreaming of being people, or people dreaming of being butterflies. Perhaps it doesn't matter. What matters is the flight. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, don't be afraid of dreams. They are not lesser realities. They are windows. And in each one, like in life, you may find a glimpse of something vast and strange and achingly beautiful. the dream continues, and so do we. Have you ever noticed how a joyful evening can vanish in a blink, while an hour at the dentist can stretch into eternity? This strange elasticity of time is not a flaw in the universe. It is a window into the depths of consciousness. Welcome to the temporal experience theory, a framework that explores not what time is, but how we feel it. Think of time not as a ticking clock, but as a river. Its flow may be steady, but where you stand in that river, how you experience the current, is always shifting. Sometimes you drift. Sometimes you paddle furiously. Sometimes the water feels still, as if time itself has paused. Remember your last vacation? The way those beautiful moments seemed to race by while you were in them. Yet when you look back, those same days feel long, layered, vivid. Now think of a childhood summer. It seemed to stretch on forever. Sunlight and freedom without end. This isn't just nostalgia. This is your mind replaying time through different lenses. The theory tells us this: time feels longer when our experiences are rich, new, and varied. Time feels shorter when life becomes a blur of repetition. When you're 5, everything is new. Each day is a discovery. When you're 50, novelty is rarer. Routine takes over, and the years, they start to run. Your brain doesn't measure time by seconds. It measures time by memory density, by how much newness it had to process. This is why the first day at a new job feels endless. Your brain is working overtime, but by the 100th day, you're on autopilot. Routine compresses time. Novelty stretches it. There's a name for what you feel on vacation: the holiday paradox. In the moment, your beach day may feel like it disappears too quickly. But later, when you recall it, your memory is rich. Sunlight, scent, laughter, taste. Your brain captured so many unique impressions that the remembered time feels longer than the time you lived. Emotion changes time too. Think of a car crash or a sudden scare. Why does time seem to slow down in danger? Your brain switches to high alert. It begins processing information at a faster rate. More frames per second. You take in more detail, more sensations, and your mind interprets this as slowed time. And then there's flow, that magical state when you're lost in painting, writing, dancing, running through the forest. When time disappears entirely, you look up and hours have passed, but it felt like minutes. Flow isn't just productivity, it's timelessness. Your attention becomes so focused, so present, that time no longer drags you, it dissolves. But if flow is liberation, then boredom is captivity. Waiting in line, staring at a clock, sitting in a meeting counting each second. Time crawls because you're watching it, because you've stepped outside the moment and into anticipation. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we shape the river of time to feel wider, deeper, longer? Seek novelty, not for adrenaline, but for awareness. Try a new recipe. Walk a different route. Speak to someone you haven't before. Read something you don't fully understand yet. Every new experience drops a pebble into the river. It breaks the current. It makes a ripple. It slows the flow. And more importantly, pay attention. savor the moment, not just the big ones, even this one, right now, the way your chest rises and falls, the flicker of thought passing through your mind, the silence behind these words. Time becomes more vivid when you notice it. You are not a victim of the clock. You are its co-author. You shape your time by the way you live it. And that may be one of the most beautiful illusions we get to believe. Because while we cannot control the turning of the earth, we can shape how long our days feel. And in the end, it may not be about how much time we have, but how deeply we feel it. Imagine this. You're walking home after a long, uneventful day, your mind elsewhere, your body moving on autopilot. And then, darkness. Not fear, not pain, just the absence of light. And then, something new. You open your eyes in a place that doesn't feel like anywhere you've ever known. Not cold, not warm, just still. A figure approaches, calm, kind, as if they've known you forever. Before you can even ask, they speak the words that will change everything. You died. But this is not the end, not even close. What comes next is not a judgment or a punishment, or even a reward. It's a conversation. And what you learn in this strange, lucid space may redefine what you believe about existence, identity, and time itself. This is The Egg, a short story by Andy Weir, a parable for a mind wide awake at 3 a.m., wondering what all this means. And at its heart, it proposes something wild, wonderful, and deeply unsettling. You are everyone. Every person who has ever lived, every life ever felt, is you. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. You are the crying infant in a hut in ancient Mesopotamia. You are the teenager in Tokyo, scrolling through their phone beneath neon lights. You are the Roman soldier, the mother of 5, the thief, the priest, the victim, the executioner. You are the laughing child, the lonely old man, the rebel, the king, the servant. Every life, rich or poor, noble or cruel, is another chapter of you experiencing the universe from a new angle. The being who greets you in this strange realm explains that Earth is a kind of egg, a place where souls grow. You are not born once. You are born again and again as every person who has ever existed. Each life a lesson, each joy and sorrow, each betrayal and forgiveness is part of a vast curriculum, until, one day, you've lived them all. And when that happens, when you've worn every mask, felt every pain, loved in every form, you'll be ready to hatch, to become something more, something beyond, something like God. Not a deity ruling over others, but a being who understands, truly understands. Not through observation, but through experience. It's a staggering thought, but within it lies a kind of sacred logic. If you were every person, then hurting another is hurting yourself. If you were destined to be every soul, then cruelty becomes madness. And kindness? It becomes the only sane choice. This story reshapes the ancient moral code. Treat others as you would wish to be treated. Not because it's polite, not because it's virtuous, but because, in this theory, you are the other. When you open the door for someone, you're opening it for yourself. When you lash out in anger, you bruise your own skin. The egg is not just a tail, it's a mirror. It invites you to reimagine not only who you are, but what it means to be. And if all this feels overwhelming, it should. Because if the egg theory is true, then every act of love is self-love, and every act of harm is a wound you will one day feel with your own beating heart. What if all human conflict was not a battle between others, but a misunderstanding within yourself? The egg theory asks you to consider this: that hatred, violence, and prejudice are symptoms of forgetting that you and the other are one and the same, that every argument is a dialogue with a different facet of yourself, that cruelty is just pain passed between mirrors. This idea echoes something ancient. In Eastern philosophies like Advaita Vedanta and Taoism, there's a concept called non-duality, the belief that separation is an illusion, the idea that I and you, self and other, are fabrications of a divided mind. There is only one ocean. The waves are temporary shapes. The egg theory brings this mystical insight into a modern fictional form, a story simple enough to understand and deep enough to never forget. In Hinduism, the soul, Atman, is a drop from the vast sea of Brahman, the universal self. In Buddhism, the self is seen as an illusion, and the path is to dissolve ego and awaken compassion. The egg theory dances between these two traditions, merging reincarnation with unity, personal growth with collective identity. But unlike Eastern teachings that allow for many souls learning across lifetimes, the egg proposes something far more radical. There is only one soul, and it is you. This idea stretches not just across religions and philosophy, but into science, especially the blurred edges of quantum physics and consciousness studies. Some interpretations of quantum theory suggest that observation, awareness itself, might shape reality. That consciousness is not an accident of matter, but a fundamental force woven into the very code of the universe. If that's true, what might it mean to be the one looking through every set of eyes? Science hasn't confirmed reincarnation or universal consciousness, but stories like the egg offer bridges between what we know and what we long to understand. They don't demand belief, they offer perspective. And perspective can change everything. Imagine walking through your day carrying this awareness, that every voice you hear is your own, that every annoyance, the rude cashier, the impatient driver, the colleague who never listens, is you in a different life, a different moment. Would you still react with anger? Or would you pause and listen to yourself? Conflicts would transform. Instead of enemies, you'd see reflections. Instead of obstacles, you'd see opportunities to forgive what you once couldn't, to embrace what you once feared. The egg doesn't make life easier. It makes it more meaningful. Because in this vision, every mistake is a lesson you must learn, and every act of love is a seed you plant in your own soul. You're not just living this life for you. You're living it for every future self who will carry your wisdom forward. The egg is just a story, but its echo lingers. Long after the final line is read, something stays with you. A quiet whisper. Maybe we're not so different after all. It reminds us of a truth we often forget in the noise of daily life. That connection is not a luxury, it's a revelation. And if we begin to live as if we are one, perhaps we can begin to heal the broken places in our world and in ourselves. So whether or not you believe in the egg, whether or not we are one soul or many, the invitation is still the same: to live with empathy, to see yourself in others, to remember that in the great unfolding of time you are not alone, you are everyone. What if the world you know, your memories, your senses, the wind on your skin, the voice in your head, was all part of an illusion? What if the real you is elsewhere, asleep, plugged into a machine? Welcome to the Matrix, not just a science fiction film, but a modern myth born from some of the oldest questions humanity has ever asked. The idea exploded into pop culture in 1999, but the questions it raises stretch back to ancient times. Is this world real? Or are we dreaming inside a cage we can't see? In the film, humans live inside a simulation, a digital world indistinguishable from reality, while their bodies lie still in pods, harvested for energy. But the Matrix is more than a movie. It's a philosophical bombshell. It asks, can we trust our senses? And if we can't, what can we trust at all? Think about it. Every single thing you've ever experienced, the color of the sky, the taste of chocolate, the warmth of a lover's touch, has been delivered to you not by the outside world directly, but through your brain. And your brain doesn't experience reality. It experiences electrical signals, signals that can be intercepted, manipulated, rewritten. Your brain is already in a matrix of sorts, a dark, silent skull receiving coded messages through nerves and chemicals. And yet, somehow, that becomes your entire world. So, what happens if those messages are replaced? This is not a new question. Long before computer code or virtual reality, René Descartes wondered if a demon could be fooling him, creating the illusion of a world that didn't exist. Today, we swap the demon for AI, but the fear remains. How would you know if everything was fake? If the illusion was perfect? Even further back in time, Plato described it in a different way. A cave. Prisoners, chained since birth. All they see are shadows on a wall, shadows cast by objects behind them. But they know no better. They believe the shadows are reality. Then one escapes and sees the fire, and then the world beyond the cave. And he realizes the shadows were never real. They were echoes, flickers, projections. His entire life was just a simulation of truth. The Matrix is this allegory reborn in digital form. It speaks not just to philosophy, but to modern fears, technology, control, the blurring line between real and virtual. And it dares to ask, in a world where perception can be altered, what is truth? The Matrix reimagines Plato's cave. but with code instead of shadows, wires instead of chains. In place of flickering firelight, we have glowing screens, digital dreams woven into the fabric of our days. But the lesson is unchanged. To awaken, one must first question, and questioning is never easy in a world built to distract you from doing so. The idea sounds fantastical, but it has serious thinkers behind it. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom posed a chilling thought. What if advanced civilizations could create simulations so realistic that the beings inside them would have no idea they were simulated? And what if they created millions of them? If that's the case, statistically speaking, we're more likely to be inside a simulation than not. It's called simulation theory. Not a belief, but a probability. Because if we, right now, can simulate basic worlds in VR, and AI is learning to mimic emotion, logic, behavior, then how far are we from a world you couldn't distinguish from your own? And if we're on that path, who's to say someone else hasn't already reached the destination? But the Matrix goes deeper. It isn't just about computers or robots or the cold logic of a digital prison. It's about something older, something deeply human: choice. In the film, Neo is offered a decision. Red pill, wake up. Blue pill, go back to sleep. This choice is symbolic. It echoes the eternal question: do we really choose our paths? Or are we guided by culture, by habit, by code we can't see? If everything you know has been shaped by external forces, your environment, your past, your media, your fears, how free are you? Are you choosing, or are you just following the script? Neo's rebellion is a revolt against programming, a declaration that truth, however painful, is better than a beautiful lie. This is the heart of awakening, not comfort, not bliss, but raw clarity. Spiritual traditions speak of this moment. Buddha under the Bodhi tree. Socrates urging us to examine life. Mystics shedding ego to see clearly. It's not about gaining knowledge, it's about shedding illusion. The red pill is not a thing, it's a mindset, a courage, a decision to see, even if what you see breaks you. And in today's world, the Matrix is not made of machines. It's made of algorithms deciding what you see, ads telling you who to be, likes replacing love, trends replacing truth, noise drowning out your own thoughts. We are living in a simulation of significance where value is manufactured and authenticity is rare. So the question remains: will you wake up? Will you pull yourself from the current of control and ask the questions no one wants you to ask? Will you step outside the cave, outside the simulation, and see what lies beneath the surface? Because the truth is not given. It is sought. It is painful. And it is freeing. The Matrix is not a warning. It is an invitation. And like Neo, we each have a choice: to keep dreaming or to awaken. What if every wish, every desire, every joy you've ever longed for could be yours, right now, at the push of a button? No more pain, no more failure, only pleasure, only happiness, only the good parts of life. Welcome to the Experience Machine, a thought experiment crafted in 1974 by philosopher Robert Nozick, meant to shake the foundations of what we believe about happiness, meaning, and the very purpose of being alive. Here's the idea. You enter a machine. Inside, you live out your dream life, travel the world, fall in love, become a legend. Everything feels real. Every touch, every thrill, every kiss, as vivid as life itself. But it's not real. It's all simulated. Your body lies elsewhere. Your mind is being fed a perfectly programmed illusion. And here's the twist. You won't know you're in the machine. To you, it will feel like real life. So the question is, would you plug in? It's a tempting offer. After all, if happiness is the goal, why not take the shortcut? Why suffer through heartache and hardship when a flawless life is waiting, tailored just for you? But Nozick didn't design this experiment to make us plug in. He built it to make us pause. Because if pleasure were truly all we wanted, we would have said yes without hesitation. And yet, many of us hesitate. Why? Because deep down, we want more than pleasure. We want truth. We want reality, even if it's messy, even if it hurts. We don't just want to feel love. We want to be loved. We don't just want to imagine success. We want to earn it. We want the climb, not just the summit. Imagine waking up tomorrow as a world-famous artist. No struggle, no practice, just instant mastery. Would that masterpiece mean anything to you? Now imagine actually working for years, failing, learning, breaking through, until one day your hands paint something that stirs the world. That's the difference. One is pleasure, the other is meaning. Inside the machine, there's no risk of failure, no unexpected turns, no real stakes. But outside, every moment is unpredictable, and that unpredictability is where life happens. The laughter after heartbreak, the calm after chaos, the courage born in struggle. The machine can replicate the feelings, but not the becoming. It can mimic success, but not the growth that forged it. The experience machine also strips you of something sacred: choice, autonomy, agency. Once inside, your path is pre-written. You no longer decide, you merely receive. In real life, you shape your identity with every decision, every risk, every leap of faith. The machine offers comfort, but not discovery. Happiness, but not evolution. This isn't just theory. It echoes the quiet ache we all feel in modern life, where social media becomes our own curated simulation. Perfect smiles, filtered lives, a constant drip of dopamine, yet a rising sense of emptiness. The experience machine is already here in smaller doses. It whispers, "Wouldn't you rather feel good than live fully?" And some say yes, but others, perhaps you, say no. Because we want more than pleasure. We want the messiness, the stumbles, the awkward silences, the real tears, and the earned joy. We want the chance to change, to grow, to touch something that wasn't scripted. And that's why Nozick's question still haunts us. Would you trade truth for comfort, authenticity for illusion? And if not, what does that say about what we really value? Maybe what makes life precious is not that it's always joyful, but that it's ours, unfiltered, unpredictable, unrehearsed. Because in the end, real life doesn't guarantee happiness, but it does guarantee something more sacred, a chance to live, to struggle, to become fully, freely, and without illusion. Imagine a library so vast, so boundless, that it holds every book ever written, and every book that could ever be written. You walk through its corridors, endless, hexagonal, dimly lit by trembling lights overhead. Somewhere on its shelves is a book containing the full truth of your life, from the moment of your birth to this very second. But next to it are 1,000 books where one detail is wrong. You die on a Tuesday instead of a Friday. Your mother's name is Margaret instead of Marie. You never kissed that person, never made that mistake, never felt that joy. And next to those, millions more, strings of gibberish, random letters and symbols, nonsense posing as knowledge. This is the Library of Babel, a haunting concept first imagined by Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges in 1941. But it's more than a short story. It's a metaphysical puzzle, a mirror of the universe, a metaphor for the limits of knowledge, the madness of meaning, and the terrifying beauty of infinity. Picture it now. Each book, 410 pages. Each page, a fixed number of letters. No illustrations, no titles, only text. Every possible permutation of the alphabet and punctuation endlessly rearranged in every conceivable order. Here you would find a perfect copy of Shakespeare's Hamlet, a version where every E is replaced with X, a book that seems to be written in your own voice, one that predicts tomorrow with uncanny accuracy, and one that whispers lies, just close enough to truth to be dangerous. Most of the books contain nothing. Chaos, noise, page after page of meaningless letter soup. But somewhere in this infinite expanse lies everything. The cure for every disease, the secrets of the cosmos, the true history of every moment. But good luck finding it. Borges didn't just write a story, he constructed a cosmos. In his version, the entire universe is the library, an infinite, orderly grid of hexagonal rooms, each filled with books and stairs spiraling endlessly. It is beautiful and horrifying, because although everything exists within its walls, it is also impossible to find. Knowledge becomes noise. Truth becomes indistinguishable from fiction. Genius is buried beneath a mountain of randomness. This is the paradox at the heart of the Library of Babel. Infinite information becomes a prison, a maze without exit, a puzzle without solution. It mirrors our own world, a digital age where data floods our minds, but clarity slips through our fingers, where Google holds the answers to everything, but the truth still feels just out of reach. Borges challenges us to consider, what does it mean to know something in a world where all possible knowledge exists, but is lost in an ocean of almosts? He was fascinated by the boundaries of reason, the absurdity of systems, and the limitations of human perception. To him, The library was not just fiction. It was philosophy, an allegory of our minds, of our search for meaning in a universe that gives us nothing except infinite possibility. As we stand in this imagined library, we confront a difficult truth. Even if the secrets of life exist, they may be buried so deep within endless combinations of the meaningless that we may never reach them. It's like searching for one specific drop in an ocean the size of forever. And yet, we search. Because to be human is to believe that somewhere, amid the noise, there is a pattern, a code, a message, just for us. Try to picture this. You're staring at a page. The letters blur. Random gibberish. A sequence of nonsense that almost resembles meaning, but falls just short. Then another page. And another. Thousands more. Each one whispering, teasing, taunting you with fragments of understanding. And then, suddenly, one sentence seems clear, true, real, only to dissolve into chaos again. This is the torment and the beauty of the Library of Babel. It suggests something haunting, that every answer we seek may already exist, but buried in so much noise that the act of discovery becomes nearly hopeless. In many ways, Borges's imagined library predicted the internet, a boundless sea of knowledge and misinformation sitting side by side. We scroll, we search, we hope for wisdom, for truth, for clarity in the static. And like Borges's infinite shelves, the digital world overwhelms us, not by its lack of answers, but by offering too many. Every insight is followed by contradiction, every truth mirrored by a distortion. We are drowning not in ignorance, but in possibility. And still, we keep searching. In Borges's story, the librarians wander the labyrinth, their entire lives consumed by a hope they cannot let go of. They seek the sacred volume, the one book that explains it all. They debate, they obsess, they go mad, and yet they continue. Why? Because to stop searching is to admit there's no meaning at all. This is the allegory Borges offers us, that we too are wanderers in a universe of incoherent symbols. Born curious, we reach toward the stars, toward gods, toward the secrets written in the code of nature. But every answer we find comes wrapped in new questions. And sometimes we mistake patterns in chaos for truth. Yet we press on, because deep down, even in a universe that refuses to explain itself, we believe there must be something worth finding. The Library of Babel also holds a darker truth, that every possible falsehood exists alongside the truth, and that the line between them may be razor thin. For every book that explains reality, there are a million that distort it. For every moment of clarity, 1,000 shadows follow. Knowledge becomes overwhelming. Meaning becomes unstable. Even logic begins to tremble under the weight of endless contradiction. And still, we write, we think, we read. Because even if we cannot find the final truth, there is meaning in the search itself. That's what Borges leaves us with. Not despair, but an invitation to accept uncertainty, to embrace the labyrinth, to find value not in arrival, but in the motion of discovery. Just like the librarians, we wander the stacks of the unknowable looking for something to hold on to. And in that wandering, we make maps, we make stories, we make meaning. Perhaps that is the real message, that truth may not be something we find. It may be something we create by choosing where to look, what to believe, and how to live amidst the noise. In the end, the Library of Babel is not just about books. It is about us, a reflection of our minds, our questions, our relentless desire to know. An infinite, bewildering expanse where each of us, quiet and determined, walks the shelves, searching, hoping, dreaming that maybe, just maybe, the next page holds the key. You arrive at a hotel so vast, its corridors disappear beyond the horizon. A shimmering lobby stretches out before you, filled with travelers from every age and origin. You step up to the desk. The clerk smiles, and then tells you something impossible. All our rooms are full, but don't worry, there's always room for one more. This is no ordinary inn. This is Hilbert's Infinite Hotel, a mathematical thought experiment so strange, so mind-bending, it breaks open your understanding of what infinity really means. First proposed by mathematician David Hilbert, this paradox isn't about hotels. It's about logic, numbers, space, and the terrifying beauty of the infinite. Every room is taken, yet you can still check in. How? Simple. The manager moves the guest in room 1 to room 2, room 2 to room 3, room 3 to room 4, and on, forever. Now room 1 is free, and you, the newest guest, are welcome. Every room was full. And yet, there's space for you. That's the first strange truth of the infinite. It's never too full. But let's raise the stakes. A bus arrives. Not just any bus, but one carrying an infinite number of new guests. Surely now, the hotel has to say no. But no. The manager smiles again and executes a new plan. He moves the guest in room 1 to room 2, room 2 to room 4, room 3 to room 6. Each guest now occupies a room that is double their current number. Now all the odd-numbered rooms are empty, infinitely many of them. And the infinite bus passengers? They slot in perfectly. Infinity welcomes infinity. But what does this mean? How can a hotel be full and yet never truly full? That's the paradox. It reveals that infinity doesn't follow the rules we use to navigate the finite world. It's slippery, counterintuitive, strange, and it doesn't stop there. Not all infinities are equal. Some are larger. The set of whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, is infinite. But the set of real numbers between 0 and 1, even more infinite. This was the discovery of mathematician Georg Cantor, who showed that some infinities are countable, like the hotel rooms, and others are uncountable, like the endless decimals hiding between numbers. Hilbert's hotel shows us the countable kind. Each guest has a room. Each room has a number. You can list them, track them, move them around. But with uncountable infinities, there is no such luxury. You can't assign numbers. You can't rearrange them. It's chaos. It's beauty. It's infinity. unleashed. And yet, we try to wrap our minds around it, to fold the impossible into something graspable. Hilbert's hotel becomes a metaphor for the universe, for space, for time, even for human potential. If the cosmos is infinite, can it ever truly be full? And if not, does that mean there's always more room for new stars, new ideas, new beginnings? This hotel doesn't just bend logic, it reshapes philosophy. If you can always add more, what does that say about limits, about boundaries, about the so-called end of anything? Could our thoughts be infinite? Could our choices? Could our lives stretch in ways we can't begin to fathom? It also forces a question we don't ask enough. Where do we draw the line between the possible and the real? We know such a hotel can't exist. Not in this world, not with bricks and beams. But it teaches us something anyway. That our assumptions about space, about fullness, about limits, are all rooted in the finite. And that beyond those roots lies a different realm. A realm where every no can somehow turn into yes, where a system that's full can still grow, still stretch, still welcome more. So next time you see a hotel with a glowing no vacancy sign, you might remember Hilbert's infinite paradox and wonder, what would it take to build a place where everyone is welcome, no matter how many have come before? Where space is not defined by square feet, but by the infinite generosity of numbers that never end. Above you, a canvas of stars stretches endlessly across the sky. Some of them ancient, some newborn, many surrounded by their own planets, some perhaps blue and cloud-swept, just like ours. And on one of those distant worlds, there might be someone looking up too, wondering, hoping, searching. And yet, across all that vastness, we've heard nothing. No messages, no signals, no signs of life. That silence, so loud, so unbroken, is the heart of what we call the Fermi Paradox. It began, curiously enough, with a casual lunch. In 1950, the physicist Enrico Fermi, in between bites of his meal, posed a question so simple, yet so haunting. Where is everybody? The room laughed, but the question stayed. It grew. It echoed. Because when you consider how many planets and stars exist, how old the universe is, and how likely life should be, the silence becomes almost unbearable. If the odds say we should not be alone, then why does it feel like we are? To understand the paradox, you start with numbers. There are hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy alone. Most of them host planets. Some of those planets exist in the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold, where life could thrive. And the universe? It's been around for over 13 billion years. More than enough time for civilizations to rise, evolve, and spread. If intelligent life is common, some of them should be far more advanced than we are, capable of crossing galaxies, sending signals, or leaving traces behind. And yet, we see none. We hear none. Nothing. One possible explanation is called the Great Filter. Imagine that life must pass through a series of monumental challenges, a gauntlet of evolutionary and cosmic trials. to reach the stars. Maybe one of those steps is nearly impossible. It could be the very emergence of life itself, or the leap from single-celled organisms to complex beings, or the ability to avoid self-destruction once intelligence arises. If the great filter lies behind us, perhaps we're rare, survivors of the hardest part. But if the great filter lies ahead, then the silence isn't mysterious, it's ominous. It could mean that every intelligent species eventually destroys itself, through war, climate collapse, or technology it can't control. If that's true, then the quiet night sky becomes a warning, a mirror reflecting what could await us. But there's another theory, less terrifying, but just as humbling. What if they're intentionally silent? Some believe that advanced civilizations might be watching us from afar, observing without interference, just as we might observe animals in a preserve. This is known as the zoo hypothesis, the idea that Earth is part of a galactic nature reserve. We are the unaware exhibit, being studied, but never contacted, perhaps to protect us, perhaps because we're not ready. Or maybe the issue isn't them. Maybe it's us. Maybe we're listening on the wrong frequency, searching with the wrong tools, using a cosmic Morse code in an age of quantum messages. What if they're speaking in ways we haven't even imagined? Light waves beyond our sensors, messages coded in gravitational shifts, or communication so complex it appears as background noise. In this view, it's not that the universe is quiet, it's that we're still deaf. Then again, there is a darker possibility still. What if there's nothing out there? No watchers, no messages, no beings looking up at their own sky. This is the rare Earth hypothesis. The idea that what happened here, on this small blue planet, is an extraordinary cosmic accident, a perfect combination of chemistry, stability, and chance that may never repeat. In that case, we are not just alone, we are precious, and perhaps fragile. The Fermi Paradox doesn't answer the question. It deepens it. It invites us to wonder not just about others, but about ourselves. Are we early? Are we late? Or are we the only voice in a dark and endless auditorium? In pondering the silence, we're not just asking, where is everybody? We're asking, what are we? What are we becoming? And what kind of future are we writing, if we're the only authors in the cosmos? The Fermi Paradox reminds us that the universe may be full of questions we haven't even learned to ask yet. And sometimes, the greatest mystery isn't out there among the stars, but right here, beneath our feet, within our minds, and at the edge of our own unfolding story. You are suspended in the void, surrounded by an endless sea of black. In every direction, stars, silence, and infinity. And then, beneath you, a fragile blue and green sphere appears, glowing softly, alone in the dark. No lines, no borders, no countries, just Earth. One single, interconnected home. This is the overview effect, a rare, life-altering shift in perception experienced by astronauts who have looked back at our planet from orbit. But it is more than awe, more than beauty. It's a radical reordering of priorities, a moment that rearranges the soul. Coined by philosopher Frank White in the 1980s, the term overview effect emerged from countless interviews with astronauts who returned to Earth utterly changed. They spoke of a profound cognitive shift, a sudden realization that all the conflicts, wars, and divisions we cling to are trivial when seen against the vast backdrop of space. Looking down from the heavens, Earth appears as it truly is, a fragile, breathing ecosystem floating alone in the cosmic sea. It's not just a planet, it's a miracle. Many astronauts describe being overtaken by a deep sense of unity, as if every person, creature, and ecosystem were woven together into a single living organism. They speak of an overwhelming empathy, not just for fellow humans, but for all life. They return not just as explorers, but as protectors, stewards. Perhaps the most iconic moment of the overview effect came during the Apollo 8 mission in 1968. As the spacecraft orbited the moon, astronauts captured a photograph that would come to define a generation. Earthrise, a blue orb peeking over the moon's barren horizon, hovering like a jewel in the blackness of space. That image changed how humanity saw itself. It helped ignite the environmental movement. It reminded us how alone and how united we truly are. Why does this shift occur? Why does simply seeing Earth from space have such a dramatic impact on the human mind? Let's ground it in something closer. Imagine spending your whole life in a small town. Your world revolves around its streets, its rules, its concerns. But one day, you climb a mountain just outside its limits. From the peak, you see not just your town, but rivers, forests, distant cities. You realize your problems were just a small part of something infinitely larger. The overview effect is that, but on a planetary scale. Astronauts who experience it often report a permanent change in perspective. They speak of letting go of petty concerns, shifting their purpose, and feeling a deep calling to serve the planet they once took for granted. Dr. Edgar Mitchell of Apollo 14 described it as a wave of instant global consciousness, a sudden knowing that everything is connected. He returned home with an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world and a burning desire to help fix it. But the overview effect doesn't belong only to astronauts. Its lessons echo through every soul willing to look beyond itself. You don't need to float in orbit to experience that shift. You can see it in the swirl of clouds from a satellite photo, in the rhythm of a rainforest, in the realization that your breath was once part of a tree, and that every action you take ripples through ecosystems you'll never see. This effect also challenges identity. From space, there is no them, no us, only we. Religious lines dissolve. National borders vanish. Even our divisions of race, class, and ideology fade into insignificance. All that remains is a single shared home. And a question: how will we care for it? The overview effect is a spiritual mirror, reflecting the truth that me has always been part of we, that our survival is not individual, but collective. It invites us to adopt a planetary identity, to see ourselves not as isolated citizens of nations, but as Earthlings, passengers on a fragile spaceship drifting through the void. And in a time when conflict, pollution, and division threaten the systems that sustain us, this shift in perspective is not just poetic, it's necessary. Because only when we feel that we belong to this planet, truly and wholly, will we begin to treat it as something worth saving. The overview. Effect is a quiet revolution, a moment of silence that speaks louder than 1,000 headlines. It reminds us that in the grand scheme of the cosmos, we are not strangers. We are one, bound by breath, by gravity, by home. And if we listen to what this effect is really saying, we might just learn how to live better, together. You step into a crowded cafe. The clatter of cutlery, the hum of voices, the rustle of newspapers. And then it happens. A few drops of coffee splash onto your white shirt. It's barely noticeable, but your heartbeat quickens. Suddenly, it feels like every head turns. Every eye latches onto that stain like a laser beam. You imagine whispers, judgment. 100 internal cameras pointed straight at you. But here's the strange truth. Most people didn't even notice. And those who did, they forgot seconds later. This phenomenon is known as the spotlight effect, the illusion that we're being observed more closely than we really are. It's as if we believe we're standing beneath a stage light, when in fact, we're one of many actors in a theater where everyone is too focused on their own lines to remember yours. Coined by psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky in 1999, the spotlight effect reveals a powerful truth about human perception. We overestimate how much others pay attention to us. To prove this, Gilovich and his team conducted an experiment. They asked students to walk into a room full of strangers wearing an embarrassing t-shirt with Barry Manilow's face on it. The students predicted that nearly half the room would notice. But in reality, only a quarter did, and even fewer remembered. Why? Because each of us is the main character in our own private film. We see through a lens centered on ourselves. Every stumble, every awkward pause, every mismatched sock feels like a headline. But to others, it's barely a passing thought, a blip in the periphery of their own spotlight. Take Sarah, a seasoned public speaker. During one presentation, she stumbled over a phrase, just once. For days afterward, she replayed the moment on loop. She was sure she'd lost the crowd, convinced she'd ruined her credibility. But when she later asked attendees what they remembered, they spoke of her warmth, her message, her clarity. No one mentioned the stumble. Some hadn't even noticed it. This is the spotlight effect in action. A reminder that the loudest critic lives in our own head. And perhaps the most forgiving audience lives outside it. Think of it this way. Everyone else is too busy worrying about their own flaws, their own posture, their own voice, their own perceived failures. They too are under their own imagined spotlight. And they assume you're watching them. But you're not. You're watching yourself, just like they're watching themselves. It's a theater of mirrors. Everyone too absorbed in their reflection to truly inspect anyone else's. This realization is not meant to diminish your value. Quite the opposite. It's an invitation to let go. That awkward comment you made? Forgotten. That shirt you wore with the crooked collar? Barely noticed. That story you told that didn't land? Water under someone else's bridge. The spotlight effect teaches a kind of gentle humility, a quiet freedom, to be human, to trip and stutter and spill and still be okay. So as you lay your head down tonight, allow yourself to release the illusion, the belief that everyone is watching. They're not. The universe has no spotlight, only stars. And like the stars, you don't need to perform. You simply need to shine. Quietly, imperfectly, just as you are. You have a strong need for others to admire you, yet you often find yourself self-critical. You possess untapped potential, and while you have some weaknesses, you generally find ways to overcome them. How accurate does that sound? You might feel like someone just peeked into your soul. But here's the twist. That same description resonates with nearly everyone. If you nodded along, you've just experienced the Barnum Effect. It's the strange and captivating psychological phenomenon where people accept broad, generic statements as deeply personal truths. It's like hearing a song that feels written just for you, only to discover that everyone else feels the same way. The effect is named after P.T. Barnum, the famous 19th century showman who once said, "There's a sucker born every minute." But there's more to it than trickery. The Barnum Effect reveals something tender and vulnerable about the human mind, our longing to be seen, understood, and validated. Picture a hall of mirrors at a carnival. Each reflection feels tailored, personal. But when you step back, you realize they're just slightly altered versions of the same image. One-size-fits-all illusions, disguised as intimate truths. Let's revisit a pivotal moment in psychology. In 1948, psychologist Bertram Forer gave his students a personality test. A week later, he handed them each a unique personality analysis. He asked them to rate how accurate their analysis felt. On average, students gave it 4.26 out of 5. But there was a catch. Every student received the exact same analysis. This simple experiment exposed something profound: how easily we accept vague affirmations as truth when they echo our internal hopes, fears, and narratives. This effect explains why horoscopes feel accurate, why fortune tellers seem uncannily insightful, and why online quizzes like "Which Greek deity are you?" feel like secret revelations. It's not magic. It's pattern recognition mixed with hope. Two key psychological forces drive the Barnum Effect. First is confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe. We filter reality through a lens built on expectations. Second are double-headed statements, phrases like, "You're sociable, but you also value your alone time." They sound specific, but they apply to almost everyone. It's like calling water both wet and capable of freezing. Two truths, one statement, and the illusion of depth. Even compliments fall into this trap. You're intuitive, resilient, and quietly powerful. It feels personal, but without context, it's as broad as a fortune cookie. Yet understanding the Barnum Effect doesn't mean we should become cynical. On the contrary, it invites us to look deeper, more honestly, at how we understand ourselves. Just because a statement feels true doesn't mean it reveals something unique. But that doesn't mean it lacks meaning. Instead, it challenges us to ask, what truly defines me? What have I lived? What choices have I made that no one else has? Yes, you may share the human experiences of doubt, longing, ambition, but the context, the flavor, the shape of those feelings. That's yours alone. So tonight, as your thoughts begin to soften, consider this. Self-knowledge doesn't come from vague affirmations, but from real reflection, from your memories, your struggles, your quiet wins. You are not the sum of generalized phrases. You are the sum of specifics, the late-night decisions, the whispered prayers, the moments you got back up when no one was watching. And that's the kind of truth no quiz, no horoscope, no mirror can fully capture. Sleep well and trust that your story, however universal its themes, is still uniquely yours. Imagine waking up one day to find that something you've always remembered never actually happened. That's the unsettling power of the Mandala Effect, a psychological phenomenon where large groups of people share the same false memory. Events remembered with total clarity, details etched into the mind with certainty, only to later discover they were never real. It's as if we've all been reading from slightly different versions of the same reality script. Stories nearly identical, but just off enough to make you question your sanity. The term Mandala Effect was coined in 2009 by researcher Fiona Broom, who discovered she wasn't alone in her vivid memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Thousands of people remembered it too. His funeral, the headlines, even emotional responses. But in reality, Mandela was released in 1990 and lived until 2013. This strange collective misremembering sparked a deeper curiosity. How can so many minds be so certain and so wrong? Think of memory not as a camera, but as a sprawling library. Each book written not by one author, but by thousands of minds at once, each whispering their own edits and interpretations. Over time, these collective stories blur, weaving fiction into fact, emotion into evidence, until we're no longer sure what we know, or what we only think we know. Let's visit a few of the most famous examples. Remember the Monopoly Man? Many recall him with a monocle, dashing and distinguished. But the monocle? It never existed. Or the Fruit of the Loom logo. People swear they remember a cornucopia cradling the fruit, a harvest image burned into their childhood. But it was never there. Not once. It's as though millions of us are remembering a painting that was never painted, reaching back into a shared dreamscape that doesn't quite match reality. Why does this happen? Cognitive scientists offer several explanations. The first is confabulation, our brain's instinct to fill in gaps in memory with logical guesses. Like a painter restoring a worn fresco, the mind adds details that seem to belong, even if they never did. The second is social reinforcement. When we talk about these memories with others who recall them the same way, our confidence in them grows stronger. Truth becomes a collective illusion, supported by the echoes of shared belief. And then, there are the more speculative theories. Some suggest the Mandela Effect reveals parallel timelines, subtle divergences between worlds where different histories coexist. Others whisper of glitches in the simulation, like misrendered textures in a video game, momentary errors in the cosmic code. While these ideas may sound far-fetched, they tap into something ancient and powerful. Our need to make sense of the strange, to find meaning in the gaps, to explain the unexplainable. At its core, The Mandala Effect reminds us. Memory is not a perfect archive. It's a living, breathing narrative, an impressionist painting of our past, filled with emotion, blurred lines, and brushstrokes of imagination. Every time we recall a memory, we aren't accessing an original file. We are reconstructing it, reshaping it in the present moment, subtly altered by time, mood, and suggestion. And yet, there's something beautiful in this, because these shared misrememberings, they unite us. They become part of our collective culture. They show us that even in confusion, we're not alone. We are all stargazers, looking at the same sky, but seeing slightly different constellations. So tonight, as your thoughts begin to fade, consider your own memories. Which ones might be a little off? Which ones have shifted over time? And does it really matter? Maybe the truth isn't always in perfect recall. Maybe it's in the meaning we attach, in the stories we share, in the strange comfort of discovering that others remember the same impossible thing. The Mandela Effect doesn't just challenge our grip on facts, it reveals the intricate poetry of human memory. Beautiful, flawed, and forever mysterious. You buy a new car. Let's say, a deep blue sedan. Nothing fancy, just something you needed. But the very next day, you begin to notice that same car everywhere. Parked on your street, passing you on the highway, sitting quietly at the grocery store. Or maybe you stumble upon a new word. Sonder, for instance. The sudden realization that everyone you meet lives a life as vivid and complex as your own. And then, as if reality has tuned itself to your mind, you begin seeing Sonder in books, in quotes, in passing conversations. It feels like more than coincidence. It feels like the world is echoing back what you've just discovered. This is the Baader-Meinhof Effect, also known as frequency illusion, a curious trick of the mind, where once something enters your awareness, it begins appearing everywhere. But has it really become more frequent? Or have you just started noticing it? Imagine your consciousness as a vast ocean with millions of currents flowing through it. Every second, information rushes past. Colors, names, objects, symbols, ideas. Most of it drifts by unnoticed. But then, a single detail, a bright yellow fish, catches your attention. And suddenly, you start seeing yellow fish everywhere, not because there are more of them, but because now your mind is attuned to them. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon was named after a 1994 comment by a newspaper reader who noticed the phrase Baader-Meinhof twice in quick succession. Ironically, after pointing this out, others began noticing it too, demonstrating the effect perfectly. So, what's really happening in the mind? Two powerful processes are at play: selective attention and confirmation bias. Selective attention is like a mental spotlight. Once a concept grabs your interest, your brain begins highlighting it automatically, surfacing it from the noise of daily life. Confirmation bias then steps in, encouraging you to notice and remember things that support your current focus while ignoring everything else. It's not that the world has changed, it's that your filter has. Let me tell you a story. Sarah, a passionate art student, was introduced to an obscure concept in class: chiaroscuro, a Renaissance technique that uses stark contrasts between light and shadow. She had never noticed it before. But after learning about it, she began to see chiaroscuro everywhere, in movie posters, black and white photography, even the way afternoon light cast sharp shadows across her kitchen counter. The world hadn't changed. Her perception had. The Baader-Meinhof Effect reveals something deeper. That reality is never just what exists. It is what we are aware of. It's like tuning a radio. The music was always there, broadcasting through the air. You simply hadn't tuned to that frequency yet. This has real-world implications. Advertisers use it. Once you see their product, they make sure you keep seeing it. You start believing it's popular or essential because it seems to be everywhere. Politicians rely on it too. They plant an idea or fear, and soon their supporters begin to find evidence of it in every headline, every tweet, every coincidence. In personal life, it works the same way. You learn a new theory, and suddenly, the world becomes a case study in that idea. You start seeing patterns that were once invisible. But beyond the tricks and biases, there's a quiet beauty to this phenomenon. Because it reminds us that the world is vast, layered, full of details we usually overlook. And when we shift our attention, new layers of reality unfold before us. Not because they were hidden, but because we were never looking. The Baader-Meinhof Effect is not just a glitch. It's an invitation to pay attention, to become mindful of what our mind is filtering, to ask, what am I not noticing? Each day, you walk through a world brimming with unnoticed miracles, the glint of sunlight on a window pane, a word that carries your exact feeling, a stranger's kindness you almost missed. As you drift toward sleep, ask yourself, what new thing entered my awareness today? What else might I see tomorrow if I only looked just a little closer? The Baader-Meinhof Effect teaches us that reality is a dance between what exists and what we choose to notice. And in that dance, you hold more power than you realize. You've been waiting all day. An email, a message, a reply that never came. Your mind begins its slow unraveling. They're ignoring me. They're trying to derail my progress. Maybe they're even talking behind my back. A single silence blooms into a storm of suspicion. But then, quietly, truth arrives. They'd misspelled your email address. A human error. Nothing more. This is the essence of Halon's razor. A philosophical principle deceptively simple. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity, harsh at first glance. But behind the sting lies a rare kind of clarity, a blade for cutting through the fog of paranoia, a tool for softening how we perceive the faults of others. Imagine putting on a new kind of glasses, one that filters out the drama your mind tends to invent. Suddenly, the world seems less hostile, not because it changed, but because your interpretation did. Let's dive deeper through a story. Sarah, a skilled software developer, was convinced her colleague was sabotaging her code. Merge conflicts, broken builds, missed updates. She told herself stories about jealousy, politics, rivalry. Weeks passed, tension grew. But the truth? Her teammate had undiagnosed ADHD. He wasn't malicious. He was overwhelmed. And when Sarah finally applied Halon's razor, something inside her softened. The enemy became a fellow traveler. The battlefield became a workplace again. Why do we so often assume the worst in others? Because our ancestors had to. For early humans, mistaking danger for safety could be fatal. The rustle in the grass wasn't just the wind. It might have been a predator. This vigilance, once crucial, now clings to modern life like a shadow, fueling overanalysis, distorting intent, breeding anxiety. But Hanlon's razor offers a way out. In the office, it turns toxic suspicion into patient curiosity. In relationships, it diffuses conflict before it ignites. In everyday life, it saves you the mental wear of spinning stories that were never true to begin with. Picture this. Your friend doesn't reply to your message. Instead of spiraling, they must be upset. You pause and wonder, maybe they're just exhausted. Maybe they forgot. A driver cuts you off. You feel your blood surge until you consider, maybe they're rushing to a hospital or just distracted by something painful. A cashier greets you coldly. Instead of taking offense, you consider, maybe they're carrying a burden I'll never see. Hanlon's razor isn't about blind forgiveness. It's not an excuse for real harm or abuse. It's a first hypothesis, a kind of emotional triage. Start with the simple. Assume error before evil. And if the truth proves darker, you can still act, but without poisoning your heart in the process. There's another layer to this wisdom. Hanlon's razor reminds us, we've all been on the other side. We've all forgotten a message, messed up a task, spoken too harshly when we didn't mean to, only to have someone assume we were careless or cruel. But we weren't. We were just tired, distracted, human. To apply Hanlon's razor to others is to offer the same grace we wish they'd give us. As you drift into stillness tonight, ask yourself, how much of your emotional weight comes not from what people did, but from what you assumed they meant? Could it be that many of the villains in your story were never villains at all? Just flawed, distracted humans trying to get through the day? Hanlon's razor doesn't promise peace, but it opens the door to it. It whispers, before you judge, before you react, look again. The world becomes gentler, not when everyone behaves perfectly, but when we learn to see imperfection without assigning cruelty. And that small shift can change the way you live, not just how you see others, but how you carry yourself in a world full of misunderstandings. You're walking through a quiet garden at dusk when you hear hoofbeats behind you. Is it more likely a horse or a zebra? Wearing a saddle, being ridden by a unicorn, on its way to a masquerade? This whimsical question introduces a surprisingly powerful idea. A thinking tool as ancient as it is relevant. Occam's razor. At its core, this principle whispers, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Not the most exciting, not the most dramatic, but the one that asks the least of your imagination to make it true. It comes from William of Occam, a 14th century friar who believed that truth didn't need decoration, that clarity was not born in complexity, but in humility, the willingness to say, there's probably a simpler answer. Let's bring this idea to life through a tale. A detective arrives at a ransacked jewelry store. Two theories emerge. 1. A skilled thief broke in during the night, used common tools, and vanished before sunrise. 2. A covert syndicate of time-traveling spies partnered with aliens, beamed the jewels into orbit, erased the CCTV, and hypnotized the guard dogs. One is Hollywood, the other is Occam. And while the second might win an Oscar, only the first earns truth. But why does simplicity so often lead us home? Imagine truth as a tower made of cards. The more layers you add, the more unstable it becomes. Each added assumption is like another card placed atop a trembling base. Occam's razor tells us to build no higher than necessary, to seek the structure that supports the evidence with the fewest pieces. This principle shaped the evolution of science. Before Copernicus, astronomers insisted the planets moved in dizzying loops, adding orbit upon orbit just to explain what they saw. Then Copernicus asked, "What if we orbit the sun?" One elegant shift. Dozens of convoluted explanations. Gone. Occam's razor didn't just simplify the cosmos. It realigned our place within it. But let's be clear. This isn't about laziness. It's not saying the easiest answer is always right. It says, only add complexity when the evidence requires it. There are mysteries, quantum mechanics, dark matter, human consciousness, where simplicity alone won't carry us to the summit. Even so, Occam's razor reminds us, don't climb the mountain if the answer lies in the valley. Now think of your own life. Your phone stops working. Is it hacked by cyber criminals? Or just out of battery? Your friend misses coffee. Have they secretly grown to resent you? Or did they forget? You wake up anxious. Is it a rare neurological disorder? Or just lack of sleep? We gravitate toward elaborate stories. They feel grander, more worthy of our emotion. But so often, truth is quieter, simpler, more human. That light in the sky, a plane, not a portal. That strange pain, indigestion, not the start of something catastrophic. There's a kind of peace in simplicity, a quiet wisdom that doesn't need drama to feel complete. Because sometimes the truth is not buried in riddles. It's resting right on the surface, uncomplicated, unassuming, waiting to be seen. As you drift into sleep tonight, ask yourself, what have I been complicating? Which fears have been fueled by stories that required too much to be true? Occam's razor invites you to pause, to cut away the mental thorns and reveal the clear path underneath. Not everything in life is simple, but not everything complicated is true. So walk gently, think clearly, and when you hear hoofbeats, it's probably a horse. Picture this. Before your first breath, before your body had form, before even your name existed, you were handed a lottery ticket. Not a ticket for riches, not for fame, but for existence itself. This was no ordinary draw. This ticket would determine everything. Where you'd be born, to whom, in what century, with what skin, what language, what history humming quietly in your blood. It decided whether you'd enter the world in a golden crib or on a dirt floor, in safety or in chaos, with privilege or with struggle. This is the lottery of birth, a quiet, cosmic truth that most of us never think about. but it shapes every corner of our lives. You didn't choose the country that raised you. You didn't pick the parents who named you. You didn't request your body, your genes, your gender, your time in history. And yet, these are the scaffolding of everything you'd come to call you. Imagine arriving at a theater midway through a play. You don't know the script. You didn't choose the stage. You didn't cast the characters. But there you are, lights rising, expected to perform. Some are handed lead roles and well-lit monologues. Others must speak from the shadows, unseen, unheard, despite having the same talent, the same soul. This theory has deep echoes in how we talk about merit, success, and fairness. Because if so much of life is decided before we even begin, what does that mean for the world we've built? Warren Buffett called it winning the ovarian lottery, being born white, male, and in America at a time when those traits opened every door. He didn't say this out of arrogance, but out of clarity. Even brilliance needs a stage. Even effort needs opportunity. Let's ground this in a simple image. Imagine two children. One is born in a village without running water. No books, no teachers, no safety. The other is born in a quiet suburb with private schools, organic lunches, and parents who read bedtime stories. Both children may hold equal intelligence, equal dreams, equal sparks, but the paths before them? Miles apart. The lottery of birth shows us that the game of life is not fair at the start. It never was, and pretending otherwise doesn't make us stronger. It just makes us blind. It's not that personal choices don't matter. Of course they do. But they're made within the walls of the hand we were dealt. It's like poker. Skill plays a role, but the cards you draw can change everything. This understanding isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to wake you up, to soften your judgment and deepen your compassion. Next time you pass someone struggling to survive, ask yourself, what if our tickets had been switched? Would you be in their shoes? Would they be in yours? This idea also reframes privilege, not as guilt, but as grace, a recognition that your place in life wasn't just earned. It was granted by circumstances you did not control. And from that grace comes a quiet responsibility to lift where we can, to open doors we didn't build, to remember that success isn't always a mirror of effort. Sometimes it's a reflection of fortune. But this theory doesn't call us to despair. It doesn't say we are prisoners of fate. Because while we cannot choose where we begin, we can choose what we do from here. We can choose empathy over arrogance, generosity over entitlement, curiosity over judgment. We can choose to treat every life as if it could have been our own. Because in a deeper sense, it could have. So tonight, as your thoughts settle, consider this. Your story began with a lottery ticket, but your next chapter? That's in your hands now. And with that awareness, perhaps you can make this life not just a gift, but a gift for others too. After all, the cosmic dice never stop rolling. But maybe, just maybe, we can learn how to play with grace. You return home after a long, ordinary day. The lights are dim. A soft smile greets you, warm, familiar, comforting. But then, something inside you recoils. It looks like them. It sounds like them. But it isn't them. Not really. somewhere in the pit of your stomach, an uncanny certainty arises. This person is a flawless imposter, a perfect replica, but empty of the soul you remember. This isn't fiction. This isn't a dream. This is the psychological condition known as Capgras delusion, a rare but deeply haunting fracture in the fabric of perception. First described in 1923 by French psychiatrist Joseph Capgras, this delusion leaves sufferers believing that someone close, a spouse, a parent, even a pet, has been replaced by an exact double. To those affected, it's not a vague unease, it's a certainty. The face is right, but the feeling is missing. To understand this strange phenomenon, we must enter the inner workings of the brain, where sight and emotion are meant to dance in harmony. Normally, when you see someone you love, two pathways light up. One identifies the face, the visual recognition system. The other, the emotional limbic system, adds the warmth, the familiarity, the invisible heartbeat of connection. In Capgras delusion, the visual system remains intact. The person is recognized, the features are familiar, but the emotional circuitry has gone quiet. It's as if your eyes know it's them, but your heart feels nothing. And in this silence, the mind weaves its own story. If I recognize the face but feel no bond, this must be a stranger wearing their skin. This disconnect is more than just a neurological hiccup. It reveals something profound. That love, trust, even recognition aren't purely visual. They live in the spaces between neurons, in the unspoken dialogue of feeling. Think about it. Have you ever stared at an old photograph and felt a strange sense of detachment? You know who it is. But it doesn't feel like them. Now imagine living in that emotional void. Every time you look at someone you love. That is Capgras. Let's take it further. What does this teach us about the nature of reality? It shows us that reality is not built solely on what we see, but also on what we feel. We assume recognition is immediate and reliable. But Capgras reveals that it's a fragile collaboration between multiple brain systems, and if just one thread is severed, the whole tapestry unravels. There's a quiet tragedy in this. To see someone's face but not feel their presence. To know their name but doubt their soul. But there is also a strange gift in understanding this condition. It reminds us that connection is more than biology. It is not just sight and sound, but energy, memory, warmth, an invisible glue binding us to those we love. So tonight, as you close your eyes and drift into sleep, reflect on the miracle of recognition. Not just that you know someone's face, but that you feel it too. That 1,000 invisible processes whisper to you in quiet unison, this person belongs to you. In a world where minds can trick us and certainty can vanish, perhaps the truest form of recognition is not what we see, but what our hearts remember. Not everything that looks human feels human. There's a flicker, a moment when your brain hesitates. The smile is just a little too stiff. The eyes move almost right, but not quite. You're staring at something that should comfort you, but instead, your skin tingles. A quiet unease settles in. You've entered the uncanny valley. Coined by robotics professor Masahiro Mori in the 1970s, This phenomenon describes the strange emotional dip we feel when artificial things come close to human, but don't quite make it. Not obviously fake, not obviously real, but suspended in a ghostly in-between. Let's explore this through a simple walk. You enter a vintage toy shop. On one shelf, a cartoonish teddy bear grins at you. It's adorable, harmless, childlike. Next, a carved wooden puppet, still artificial, but endearing in its simplicity. Then, you turn a corner. There it is, a hyper-realistic humanoid doll, skin that mimics pores, eyes that almost blink naturally, an eerie frozen smile that seems to almost know you, and something inside you recoils. Why? According to the Uncanny Valley theory, our emotional response to human-like creations increases as they become more lifelike, but only up to a point. When something appears almost human, but not quite real, our comfort plummets. It's like reaching a cliff edge. Your brain says, "This should feel safe," but something's wrong. It's as if the creation exists in a psychological no man's land, too fake to be trusted, too real to be ignored. This strange dip, this valley, may have evolutionary roots. Some scientists believe it helped our ancestors recognize disease or death in others, signals to stay away. Others say it touches something deeper, our fragile sense of identity. Perhaps we instinctively fear that our own humanity could be copied and replaced. To understand it, think of a symphony. When all instruments play in harmony, the sound is beautiful. But if just one note is off, even slightly, our ears sense the discord. We may not know what's wrong, but we feel it. The uncanny valley works the same way. Our minds are exquisitely tuned to pick up microscopic irregularities in human expression, tone, and movement. But this isn't just about robots or CGI. It's a mirror. As technology blurs the line between real and artificial, from AI-generated voices to digital influencers, we're forced to ask, what makes someone human? Is it biology, emotion, imperfection? The more we try to replicate ourselves, the more we come to appreciate what machines cannot yet mimic: our flaws, our crooked smiles, the unpredictability in our laughter, the sincerity in our hesitation, even our asymmetry, the minor facial quirks and tonal stumbles, tells others, "I am real." Perhaps the uncanny valley isn't just a warning, but a revelation. A reminder that authenticity can't be engineered, that what comforts us is not perfection, but imperfection, carried with warmth and meaning. So tonight, as your mind softens into sleep, reflect on this strange truth, that being fully human isn't about appearing flawless. It's about being vulnerably real. And maybe, just maybe, in a world of increasingly lifelike illusions, the most human thing we can offer is our unpredictable, irreplaceable soul. Not every truth can be spoken. Not every beauty can be named. And yet, you felt it. A silence so rich it hums. A shadow that deepens the light. A passing moment that echoes longer than a symphony. This is Yugen, a Japanese word with no perfect translation, only reverent approximations. Mysterious grace, subtle depth, or perhaps more truthfully, a beauty felt in the bones, not seen by the eyes. It lives in the pause between raindrops, in the trail of birds vanishing into the mist, in the faint trembling of a candle's last flicker. To understand Yugen is to recognize that the world's most profound truths hide in what remains unsaid. Imagine this. You're standing alone on a quiet cliffside at dusk. The sky is turning the color of old bruises, deep purples, faded golds. Below, the sea breathes in slow rhythm. You see a flock of geese cutting through the air, disappearing into the clouds before your eyes can follow. You don't know where they're going. You'll never know. But you feel it. Some invisible string tugging at your soul. That is Yugen. Yugen is not in the geese, or the ocean, or the twilight. It lives in the space between these things, in the suggestion of what can't be fully understood, only sensed. In the classical Japanese arts, Yugen is a hidden language, a whisper in a no performance, the silence that stretches between gestures, a haiku that evokes 1,000 unspoken emotions with just 3 lines. In painting, it's the blank space that says more than color. In music, it's the note held back that carries the weight of the entire melody. But Yugen isn't confined to art. It's a philosophy of being, a way of seeing. It reminds us that mystery is not the absence of knowledge. It's the presence of something greater than knowledge can hold. Even modern science stumbles into its arms. The more we learn about black holes, dark matter, and the quantum entanglement of particles, the more we're reminded that reality is stitched together with uncertainty, paradox, and awe. Think of human consciousness. We don't perceive it directly. We see its ripples, in words spoken, in choices made, in art created, in love given. Just as wind is known by the trembling of trees, consciousness is known by the shimmering of experience. This, too, is Yugen. Or consider memory. Not the facts, but the feeling of a moment. The warmth of a hand we no longer hold. The scent of a season long past. We cannot return to it. We can't fully explain it, but we feel its shape. This, too, is Yugen. In a world obsessed with clarity, Yugen defends the unknown. In an age ruled by answers, it worships the question. It invites you to see the universe not as a puzzle to solve, but as a sacred poem to live inside. As you prepare to slip into sleep, remember, this moment itself holds Yugen. The drifting of thoughts, the veil between wakefulness and dreaming, the slow unraveling of certainty. You are part of something vast, mysterious, and beautiful. You don't have to name it. You don't have to understand it. Just feel it. That's more than enough. Pause. Just for a moment. Let the breath arrive, and then let it leave. Now, notice what's there. That brief, invisible space. That whisper between inhale and exhale. That is Ma. Not emptiness, not absence, but presence in pause. Ma is a Japanese philosophical concept so subtle it vanishes if you try to grab it. It's not a thing. It's the space around the thing. It's not silence, but the meaning inside the silence. Not what is spoken, but what lives between the words. Ma is the breath between notes in a melody, the stillness between thoughts in meditation, the hush before a kiss, the quiet moment when your hand almost touches another's, but doesn't. It is the invisible tension that makes the visible more vivid. The Japanese character for Ma shows sunlight peeking through a gate, a crack in the structure where light gets in, where what is not there makes what is there shine brighter. You see, Ma doesn't mean lack. It means potential, possibility, that sacred moment when nothing is happening, but everything is possible. Picture an ancient tea house in Kyoto. There's a small alcove, empty. No furniture, no clutter, just space. To Western eyes, it may seem like a void, but in Japanese aesthetics, this empty alcove is a container for the soul, a space meant to be felt, not filled. It holds not objects, but presence. In music, Ma is the pause that gives rhythm its pulse. Without space between notes, sound becomes static, chaos. But with the right pauses, we have music, emotion, meaning. In architecture, Ma is the hallway that doesn't just connect two rooms. It allows breath to flow between them. It creates balance. In calligraphy, it's the untouched white space that gives the black ink its power. Without it, there's no contrast, no clarity, no beauty. But Ma isn't just for artists. It lives in your daily life. It's in the morning silence before the world wakes. It's in the stillness just after someone asks you a deep question and before you answer. It's the space between heartbeats when you hear something that moves you. It's the air that hangs after someone you love says, "I need to tell you something." Yet in the modern world, we've been taught to fear these spaces. We fill every quiet moment with screens, noise, tasks. We rush to close every pause with content. But Ma whispers, "Don't be afraid of nothing," because what we call nothing may be the most sacred something of all. Ma teaches that in doing nothing, you might be doing the most important thing. A master musician knows this. So does a master chef. So does a child staring at the stars. They understand the power of space, to let something breathe, to let meaning arrive on its own time. In meditation, Ma is the pure awareness before the next thought arises. In grief, Ma is the hollow ache that holds everything unsaid. In joy, Ma is the suspension of time in a moment of wonder, when you don't want the laughter to end. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, don't rush the silence. Notice the pauses, the soft spaces between thoughts, the blankness behind your closed eyes, the invisible field where dreams gather. That is Ma, the quiet that shapes the sound, the space that gives your life rhythm, the stillness that makes everything else meaningful. Let it hold you now, not as emptiness, but as invitation, an opening through which peace can slip in without needing a reason. Ma is not the absence of life. It is the shape of it, the soft outline that lets the light in. Look closely, at your hands, at the tiny creases near your knuckles, the scars, the lines, the unevenness, not flaws, not damage, but stories, histories that no machine could replicate. This, right here, is Wabi-Sabi, a Japanese aesthetic philosophy that invites us to find profound beauty in imperfection, in impermanence, in the quiet truth that nothing is ever truly complete. Wabi once meant solitude, a humble life in harmony with nature, far from society's noise. Sabi evoked the patina of time, the mellow beauty that comes with age. Together, they form something powerful, a world view, a way of being, a reminder that beauty doesn't come from flawlessness, but from weathering, from wear, from time. Imagine a ceramic bowl, centuries old. One day it cracks, but instead of being thrown away, its fractures are repaired with molten gold. The break is not hidden, it is honored. This is kintsugi, and it is wabi-sabi made visible. The gold doesn't erase the damage, it celebrates it. The bowl is not beautiful despite its cracks. It is beautiful because of them. Wabi-sabi lives in all things touched by life. The faded spine of a beloved book, the creaky floorboard in your childhood home, the uneven handwriting in a decades-old letter, the wrinkles around someone's eyes when they smile just a little longer than necessary. These are not things to fix. They are things to cherish. In our world of filters and flawless pixels, Wabi-Sabi offers a quiet rebellion. It says, you don't need to be perfect to be beautiful. You don't need to last forever to matter. You don't need to be finished to be whole. Think of a wooden bench in a garden. Over the years, it has grayed, cracked, its edges softened by rain and sun. To a perfectionist, it is decaying. But through Wabi-Sabi eyes, it is coming into its full expression, a symphony of time and nature etched into grain and moss. And what about relationships? A long marriage, weathered by arguments and reconciliations. A friendship, stitched together through seasons of silence and return. These bonds aren't flawless. They're real. They've endured. They've become beautiful through their vulnerability. Wabi-Sabi asks you to shift your gaze. Don't look for what's new. Look for what has endured. Don't idolize the untouched. Revere what's been touched by time. Don't fear age or change or the slow erosion of things. Within that erosion lies meaning, a quiet dignity, a truth more lasting than any perfection ever promised. Even in nature, nothing is symmetrical. No two leaves are identical. No mountain has straight lines. No tree grows in perfect geometry. Wabi-Sabi reminds us, the universe itself is slightly askew, and that's the point. We are not meant to be polished mirrors. We are meant to be rivers, shaped by the rocks. We are meant to be pottery, marked by the fire. We are meant to carry the gold of our healing in the places where we once broke. So tonight, as you close your eyes, let go of the idea that you must be flawless. Let go of the chase for permanence. Let go of the illusion that completeness is the goal. You are a moment in motion, and that's enough. Your life, like a weathered stone temple, like a cracked teacup held with love, like the laughter lines around your mouth, is perfectly imperfect. In the stillness of this moment, Wabi-Sabi whispers something eternal. Nothing lasts. Nothing is finished. Nothing is perfect. And that is what makes life so heartbreakingly beautiful. Under a cherry tree, its blossoms in full bloom, you sit in stillness. A gentle breeze passes. One petal loosens, just one, and drifts quietly through the air. It twirls, floats, then lands softly at your feet. And in that moment, something stirs inside you. A tender ache, a soft sadness, a fleeting sense that this perfect moment is already vanishing. This is mono no aware. The term, from Japanese aesthetics, is often translated as the pathos of things. But that phrase barely scratches the surface. Mono no aware is not about grief. It's about sensitivity. It's the deeply human realization that everything we love, every smile, every season, every sunset, will pass. And rather than bringing despair, this awareness deepens our love. It makes each moment feel more sacred. Think of the final page of a beautiful novel, or the quiet stillness after the last note of a song, or the final hug before a goodbye you didn't want to say. There's no tragedy in these endings, only poignancy, only beauty magnified by its impermanence. That's mono no aware. It's the emotion behind a faded photograph of people you once knew by heart. It's the warmth and ache of watching your child outgrow their favorite toy. It's the last day of summer, when the sunlight feels softer and everything glows a little more. You're not mourning what's lost. You're feeling what's passing and recognizing its value because it's passing. In Japanese culture, the cherry blossom, sakura, is the perfect metaphor. It blooms for only a few days, then scatters. Yet in those few days, people gather beneath the trees, laughing, drinking tea, sharing silence. They know the petals will fall. That's the point. The cherry blossom isn't beautiful despite its brevity. It is beautiful because of it. Mono. No aware is not nostalgia. It is not sadness. It is presence. It is holding a moment with full awareness that it cannot last, and loving it all the more for that. It tells us, you do not need to cling. You do not need to possess. You only need to feel. Let life pass through you, like wind through open hands, like starlight through a curtain, like water over stones. Even in love, mono. No aware lives. To love deeply is to know that nothing lasts forever, not even the people we love. But this isn't reason to close off. It's a reason to love more fiercely, more attentively, with gratitude, with presence. Because when you know something won't last, you learn to treasure it right now. Our modern world tempts us to archive everything, to screenshot, to upload, to replay every second. But Mono No Aware says, this moment will never return exactly as it is, and that is what makes it irreplaceable. Every sunrise, every breath, every quiet moment lying beside someone you love. Each one is a singular flame. It flickers, it fades, and it can never be lit again in exactly the same way. So as you lie here now, drifting into sleep, Notice the moment. Feel the ache of its softness. Feel the sweetness in its impermanence. Let it pass through you, not with resistance, but with reverence. You will never experience this exact breath, this exact thought, this exact silence ever again. And that is what makes it perfect. Mono. No aware isn't a lesson in sadness. It's an invitation to live, not forever, but fully. To hold each fleeting second as if it were gold leaf on your fingertips, too delicate to grasp, too beautiful to forget. It is the ache that reminds us we are alive, that we are here, and that everything we love is glowing just before it disappears. Picture a family portrait. Everyone is smiling, but look closer. One child is there, and not there. They're present, but quietly fading into the edges. Not absent, just unseen. Like light through a window, like a ghost in daylight, like glass. This is the glass child syndrome. The term was coined by Alicia Arenas, a woman who grew up as the sibling of a child with special needs. She didn't vanish. She wasn't neglected in anger. But she became, in her words, the one people looked through. Because when one child requires all the oxygen in the room, the others learn to hold their breath. They become strong. They become quiet. They become glass. Imagine a family as a garden. One flower needs constant watering, daily tending, shade in the day, warmth at night. That attention is love. It's necessary. But in the shadow of that love, another flower grows, on its own, quietly, resiliently. It bends toward whatever sun remains. It doesn't demand. It adapts. That flower is the glass child. They are not fragile in the way you think. They appear strong, self-sufficient, wise beyond their years. And that's the danger. Because like a flawless glass, they sparkle, but break silently. No one hears the shatter when they fall. Glass children often develop remarkable empathy. They can read a room before stepping into it. They hold space for others, even when no one holds space for them. They grow up fast, too fast. They become emotional caretakers while still needing care. They learn to disappear without leaving the room. They don't want to burden anyone, so they carry everything quietly. Now imagine this. You hold two glasses. One has a visible crack. You cradle it, knowing it could break at any moment. The other appears flawless. You trust it to hold anything. But what you don't see is how that second glass, under pressure, has been quietly chipping for years. This is what the world often misses, that the appearance of strength is not the absence of need. To the glass children listening, you are not invisible. You never were. Your calm was mistaken for ease, your silence for contentment, your strength for invincibility. But you are so much more than what you were asked to carry. You are not the background. You are the spectrum of light that refracts through the very center of the family story, like a prism that seems clear, but contains every color. Glass children often become the most thoughtful adults. They are the therapists, the teachers, the healers, the ones who ask how others are doing and mean it. But beneath all that giving is a soft, aching question. When will someone ask about me? This syndrome isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Parents love their children, desperately. But love, spread too thin, can become uneven. Sometimes, the child who doesn't demand ends up receiving the least. Not by cruelty, but by accident. So what can we do? We can notice. We can pause. We can say, I see you. I hear you. I didn't know before, but I do now. We can ask the strong one how they are doing. We can tell them it's okay to not be okay. And we can remind them that being self-reliant doesn't mean being alone. As you drift toward sleep tonight, if you were a glass child, or still are, know this: your transparency was never a flaw. You were never invisible. You simply learned how to reflect the world before it was ready to reflect you back. Like stained glass at sunset, your life holds color, depth, and quiet brilliance, even when no one is watching. Being glass doesn't make you weak, it makes you luminous. In the right light, at the right time, those who finally look closely will see. You were never just part of the background. You were the light we should have seen all along. You're circling the lot, again and again. Every space is full, every turn a dead end. You clench the wheel tighter, you mutter under your breath, and just as you sigh, resigned, defeated, someone pulls out, then another, and another. It's as if the moment you stopped trying, life opened up a space for you. This isn't just chance, it's a mirror, a metaphor. Welcome to the philosophical parking lot theory. On the surface, it's about finding a parking space, but beneath that, it's about the human condition, the way we strive, grasp, force, only to find ourselves further from what we want. We chase sleep and lie awake. We pursue love and feel more alone. We demand happiness and feel more empty, because the harder we try, the more it slips away. This is the law of inverse effort. Coined by Aldous Huxley, it reveals that certain things, like peace, sleep, trust, or inspiration, can't be seized. They must be allowed. The tighter we grip, the more we strangle the very thing we're trying to hold. Now picture yourself still in that parking lot. You've been looping for 10 minutes, ignoring every spot that isn't just right. Too far, too tight, too exposed. But maybe you weren't really looking. You were fixated. This is the paradox of attachment. When we become too attached to how something must look, we miss all the other forms it could take. You wanted love to arrive in a red car at a perfect time with roses. So when it showed up quietly with coffee and kind eyes, you walked past it. You wanted joy to look like a promotion, a milestone, a celebration. So when it came as silence or a slow Sunday morning, you didn't notice. Now think of that moment when you gave up. When you said, "Forget it, I'll park anywhere." And in that soft surrender, everything shifted. This is the liberation of letting go. It's not about giving up. It's about giving in. Letting go of the desperate energy that blocks the flow of what wants to reach you. Astronomers call it averted vision. When you try to look directly at a faint star, it vanishes. But when you look just to the side with soft eyes, the star appears. What a perfect metaphor for love, for inspiration, for sleep, for peace. The harder you chase, the more elusive it becomes. But when you ease your grip, it finds you. This isn't just psychological. It's ancient wisdom. Taoists called it Wu Wei, effortless action. Buddhists teach non-attachment. The Stoics spoke of letting go of what we don't control. The parking lot is just a modern temple for an old truth, that sometimes our greatest obstacle is our obsession with control. Picture a hand clenched in a fist. It can't hold anything new. It can't receive. But when the hand opens, it becomes ready. So too with the mind. So too with the heart. As you lie here, still and breathing, notice where you're gripping. Not just your muscles, but your thoughts. What have you been circling around without rest? Sleep? Love? Forgiveness? A sense of worth? Now, what happens if you stop circling? If you stop demanding? If you allow? The philosophical parking lot. Theory reminds us, we don't always find what we want by chasing it harder. We find it when we make space, like a breath between thoughts, like an exhale after holding too tight, like surrender, soft and honest. As you drift toward sleep, let this final truth settle in. You don't need to chase the perfect moment. You just need to stop running from stillness, because sometimes what you seek has been waiting for you to stop circling all along. Imagine holding a book, thick, ornate, heavy in your hands. Its cover is carved with symbols you've never seen before. Yet they feel familiar, like a forgotten language from a dream you had as a child. You open it slowly. A tree turns into a chair. A man becomes a fish. Rainbows spiral into machines. Words flow across the page, looping, graceful, utterly indecipherable. No one knows what they mean. No one ever has. Welcome to the Codex Seraphinianus, a riddle wrapped in paper, a dream disguised as a book. Created in the late 1970s by Italian artist Luigi Serafini, this strange encyclopedia has no glossary, no translation, no key to understanding. And yet, it captivates. Its pages mimic the structure of knowledge, an encyclopedia of an alien world. But the more you read, the less you know. You are not learning. You are wandering, like Alice in Wonderland, but with no rabbit to follow, no path to return from. Every illustration evokes a strange resonance. You recognize something, a flower, a city, a body, but it's twisted, fused with something impossible. A fish flies through colorless clouds. An insect becomes architecture. A figure melts into its shadow. You try to explain it, but language collapses in your hands. This is not a book meant to be understood. It's a book meant to be felt. At the heart of its mystery is its script, a flowing, consistent, utterly alien language. It looks like writing. It behaves like writing. But it's never been decoded, not by scholars, cryptographers, linguists, or machines. Is it a real language, or a clever illusion. Some believe it's a kind of pseudo-writing, meant to simulate the experience of encountering language for the very first time, like an alien child finding an English dictionary. The symbols are there, the structure is there, but the meaning floats out of reach. And maybe that's the point, to remind us how easily meaning can dissolve, how fragile understanding really is. We move through life trying to label, explain, define. We want things to make sense, to be ordered, to be clear. But the Codex whispers, what if not everything is meant to be known? Some pages resemble scientific diagrams, charts, maps, classifications, but they're absurd, playful, sometimes unsettling. A man grows into a chair. A machine bleeds like an animal. Two lovers transform into a hybrid form before melting into the page. Each drawing invites an interpretation, but denies a final answer. You begin to wonder, is this what reality is like beneath the surface? Not facts, but stories. Not meanings, but echoes. The Codex. Seraphinianus becomes a mirror, not of the world, but of you, of how you read, how you search, how you crave answers where there may be none. Some say the Codex is a critique of encyclopedias, of knowledge, of humanity's obsession with categorizing everything. What if not all things fit into boxes? What if some truths refuse definition? Like love, like memory, like art, like grief. Absurdists call this the beautiful futility of the human experience. Like Camus' Sisyphus, we push the boulder of understanding up the hill only to watch it roll back down. And still, we climb, we search, we read. Not to find the answer, but to become the kind of person who keeps seeking. In this way, the Codex is not a puzzle, it's a practice. A meditative exercise in surrender, a quiet rebellion against the age of clarity. As you lie here, somewhere between waking and dreaming, consider this. What if the meaning of the Codex is that it has no meaning? What if its silence is its message? What if you stopped trying to solve it and simply let it wash over you? Like poetry, like rain, like music in a language you've never heard. The Codex Seraphinianus teaches us that not all mysteries are meant to be decoded. Some are meant to be held, felt, carried, not as burdens, but as companions. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.